Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope the coffee was pretty refreshing. Moving on to our next plenary is titled Moving Markets, Push or Pull. And let me introduce you to the panelist and also our moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to to Dr. Fabrice Touron, the Head of Research for Fed & Associates, Tracy Gazibara, the Vice President of Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, Dr. Surina Ismail, Global Director of IP and Knowledge Management for Emery Oleochemicals, Daniel May, Secretary General of the German Forum on Sustainable Palm Oil, and Bapa Edi Suhardi, the Director of Sustainability for PT Agro Harapan Lestari. Ladies and gentlemen, moderating this plenary will be Mr. Robert He, founder of the Palm Oil Consumers Action, or POCA. Let's give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello and welcome to the session on markets. We'll be talking about CSPO from the views of growers, refiners, and consumer groups. I've personally been watching the industry for the past 7 years, and over that time, I've had the honor of getting insights from growers, refiners, and brands. But the most exciting time has to be the past 12 months. We had major plantations committing to zero deforestation. Others, like those in the Sustainable Palm Oil Manifesto, got together to create an enhanced version of sustainable palm oil. We also had numerous manufacturers committed to similar goals of no deforestation and to the use of CSPO. Even institutional investors have stepped in and demanded the use of CSPO by companies that they invest in. Recurring themes through most of these announcements, however, were buzzwords like beyond RSPO or working above RSPO standards. Now, I don't have to tell you that the confidence level among consumers in the RSPO is low. And that is disappointing because as the only certification body for palm oil, it has the potential to drive so much change, and yet the impact has been minimal. Some industry members have said that the supply chains are too complex, that segregated CSPO is too expensive. Yet others have said that if the volume was there, the supply chain need not be complex or prices expensive. And I see in this room today enough volume, influence, and power that if you all wanted to make sustainable palm oil the norm, we could do it, if the will was there. If you believe what the press says, as of last week, 75% of the palm oil produced in the world is now covered by zero deforestation commitments. But if you look at the hard numbers that the RSPO puts out, only 18% of the total production of palm oil today comes from sustainable sources, more than half of that from paper offsets. So in my mind, what should be done is to get all of the RSPO members certified, especially with the plantations that the members own. This would essentially bring up the needed volume up and ease the supply chain difficulties for segregated CSPO, bring costs down, and the biggest thing would be it would actually get RSPO logos onto market shelves. But if I were to put myself in a grower's shoe, I would ask, why would I spend more money certifying plantations when so much actual physical sustainable palm oil gets sold as conventional product? If I had to use an image today to describe how I see where the RSPO is in terms of consumer opinions, I would perhaps use the horse and cart image. And as I see it, the growers, the plantation owners, they have built the cart, and the only thing that they're waiting for now is actually for the manufacturers and the brands to provide the horse to pull it. So we've got a great session here today. We're going to hear from the panelists now, and if there are any questions, there's going to be a question and answer period at the end of the session. So for now, I'm going to pass you on to Mr. Eddie Suhardi. Eddie represents Indonesian growers as the Director of Sustainability of PT Agro Harapan Lestari, a palm oil plantation group company in Indonesia. Eddie?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, participants of the RT12 of the RSPO, I would like to present the grower's perspective on how to move the markets. And the title of my presentation will be on the peer factor and feel good factor, on how to harness key drivers to move CSPO market. The presentation will touch upon 4 areas. One is on managing expectation, CSPO production, the transformation of CS production in Indonesia, key drivers to move CSPO market, and how we can move CSPO market forward. Before I talk about the moving the market, we have to understand the stakeholder. The concept of stakeholders, as we believe, is the driving force to change. And the transformation of CSPO producer has been actually successfully done because of the pressures from the market and other stakeholders. And in order to change the market, we also need to drive the consumer to change. Before the understanding on how we can move the market, we also need to get clarification on some of the myths and beliefs and misconceptions that are now actually circulating among the RSPO members. There's a conflicting myth. The RSPO members from the non-growers think that the premium price is the key main determining factors for the RSPO members to certify. But that belief is actually not true. The fact is that the RSPO producer changed the way they operate because of the credibility factors. So the credibility is the most important thing. And it's going to cause the loss of investor confidence, and also we need to anticipate the transformation of investment climate and supply chains. And also the main driving factors to change the production, the way we operate, is that we are fear because of the public pressures. We are fear of the pressure basically driven by the civil society as well as market and understand the stakeholders. So fear factor play key role for us to change. And there's also a belief that was by the growers that we always told that the market of CSPO is considerably low, only 52%. That's not true, because basically the premium is not the market is not the as it was stated. The market of CPO is always 100% absorbed. However, we also noticed that the CSPO also certified by ISCC, and people or the growers are prepared to sell the ISCC instead of CSPO under the RSPO scheme. And also CSPO is absorbed by their own industry in the vertical integration. And some also, like my colleagues, they are not interested to sell the CSPO at the premium price because it's not worth it because of the complication in the process and also for other consideration. And the perception on the growers is that they are transforming themselves because of also for appeal factor. They think that the RSPO and CSPO are good for business because it provides green credentials, it also helps enhance efficient use of resources, and also it lead to higher yield and productivity. Also, it's minimize the negative externality, which is very critical for us. But however, we also still facing the challenges, which is the majority of Indonesian or growers company are not still interested in the RSPO because they are still thinking of with the mental victim mentality, as well as they still think that they are lopsided in terms of fairness and also the production focus attention from the stakeholders. And CSPO also seen as a niche market for niche products for niche market. And the most important thing is also the growers also think that it is very difficult and quite tedious to catch up with ever-evolved stringent standards and moving goalposts. So the transformation of CSPO production in Indonesia is actually happening thanks to a number of drivers. The key motive is peer factor and also feel-good factor. The issue of transparency, social issues, as well as environmental issue has been quite critical to move us to change. And the drivers are actually the investors and market, whereas the NGOs as well as media pose as the influencer to the process. And we also being pulled by a number of champions of sustainability committed company, and which is actually create a conducive environment for us to change. And there is also a transformation stage from peer factor. I mean, some of the companies actually change. From initially, they change because of peer. Now they change because they also think that they need also to address the feel-good desire. And that's why it is the reason why the RSPO committed company are actually established. And also the external pressures from CSO and other parties are being internalized, and it create new commitment and then new business values as well as practices within the company. So we believe that when fear is overcome, the company is also aiming for feeling good factors that shape the commitment of the company. So again, when we learn from Indonesian transformation, after the establishment of the RSPO, there are 4 stages that, in my opinion, we experienced. The first stage from 2004 to 2007 is the exploratory stage, whereas the growers are getting to know the RSPO and raise the awareness. And then from 2007 to 2010, it's experimentation. Try to adapt the standard that was introduced, and it creates some categories within the companies. There are supportive companies to the RSPO, and then wait and see, which is the majority of the companies, and very basically skeptical companies also were identified. In 2010 and 2013, a number of companies sees that this is a period to determine whether they are able to adopt the RSPO standards, or they actually survive in the natural selection, or they just decided to quit. And this period, from 2013 onwards, we see that this is a period of maturity, whereas the niche group of progressive RSPO committed already established and evolved. And the outcome of transformation, there are 3 categories in Indonesian growers. One is fully committed champions of sustainability, which also aiming for RSPO plus, whatever it is. And the second one is committed to RSPO, most of us here, and non-RSPO members. And now when we look at the way on how to change and move the CSPO market, we need to build a critical mass. That's what happened in the production side. So I think we have done our part, and it's now the turn for the market side to change. And then we need to clearly distinguish between the CPO and CSPO, and most of the actually consumer and market in Europe, they still cannot distinguish the CSPO and CPO. And then we need to create an awareness of the consumer, and we need to create a consumer movement for use of the CSPO. And also, we also need all of us not only to focus on production, but also on the market, create balance, share of the responsibility. And of course, a new market for the RSPO need to be open. And how we can change the market, there are two-pronged approach that I would like to share with you as basically learning from the production side. One is to create the champions of market. I haven't seen any companies actually fully committed to buy 100% of CSPO. Neither MNC, neither what's it called, champion of what's it called, the big companies, conglomerates in any place in the world. Basically, these champions of sustainability needs to advocate and pull the market towards the CSPO. And then also we need to create a condition to push the market through the engagement of NGOs as well as media to build peer factor, to build sense of guilt among the market. And we need to galvanize public support on CSPO market, and also introduce incentive for the committed company, as well as we need to promote some like feeling good among sentiments among the market, the buyers. And CSPO market is now only at the development stage, and it's potentially to grow. But CSPO is still seen as a niche market. Therefore, the premium is still a necessity. And the market growth is actually determine the CSPO production. We can, actually the producer can produce any amount, any volume the market needed, but the demand is still low. So basically the market is going to set the agenda of sustainability and CSPO production. And also we need to understand that there will be a scenario in market segmentation. We need to identify at least three type of market. One is platinum market for CSPO plus, and then gold market for CSPO, and then traditional market for non-CSPO. So in a nutshell, we need to build CSPO credibility and attractiveness in the market to spur the demands and boost CSPO production. And we need to create new equilibrium and share responsibility, share burden between the production side and market uptakes. And we need to create fear. We need to create sense of guilt. And we need to create feel-good motives and factors to be capitalized to move the market. And it is the consumer, which is actually a key driver and saver of the market, need to be further advocated for CSPO use. And lastly, we need to have actually engagement of all stakeholders to, again, create a conducive environment for the increasing uptakes of the CSPO. But also, we need, now I think we are too friendly to the market. Now we also need to scrutinize the market. We need to, learning from the production side, we need to do name and shame. We have done, I mean, we have experienced that our colleagues being victimized. And now I think it's time for the market, big buyers, MNC, to be targeted. So I urge basically the NGOs and also the partner organization to look at a more balanced responsibility, a more balanced burden, and a more balanced, basically, accountability among market as well and the production. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Your next panelist is Dr. Fabrice Touran, who has over 15 years experience in the oils and fats industry. Since 2010, he's been leading the research activities at FAT and Associates as a specialized consultancy for the lipids, oils, and fats value chain. Dr. Touran?
Many thanks. Objective of my speech of today is to introduce you one event which is changing the food market mainly in Europe. It's the oil labeling. So I will try to explain you what is the oil labeling and how it is impacting today the palm oil market. First of all, if we look at the situation since 2005, we see that there is a shift in the growth rate of the palm oil consumption in Europe. This graph is representing the palm oil and the palm kernel oil situation. And what this graph is not showing you, it's the fact that the consumption today is completely different between the biodiesel demand and the food demand. Today, what is driving in Europe the consumption of palm, it's biodiesel, no more food. That's why we have a growth rate for palm kernel oil, which is only 1% a year. And this growth rate slightly slowed down since the past years. And the palm consumption for food slightly but surely decreased in the past years. And the logic of this decrease, it's the debate that we can have today in Europe about the palm oil. Debate with different arguments, and I'm not here to enter into the debate, arguments about environmental effect, animalist effect, humanitarian effect, and health relationship about the palm oil. And all this seems today to be reinforced. Reinforced by what? By this. This is two examples of chips that we find in Europe today. And I will show you that these two packaging are influencing the palm oil consumption today. The first package, this one, you can see, if you look at the ingredient list, that, sorry, it's in Spanish, so I will translate a bit, vegetable oil, without any more mention. And this package is a package that we can find very easily in Europe. The second package is this one. And this one is completely different positioning in terms of ingredient list because they are completely reformulate the ingredient list. And today, what we can find behind the word vegetable oil, it's the nature of vegetable oil. And in such a case, you see that this product has been made with sunflower at 70% and virgin olive oil at 30%. And this is the key driver that I'm talking about in Europe. The fact that this packaging will disappear and it will be replaced by this one. And by December this year, we would have a mention of what oil is inside. And all this is coming from the notion of labeling. This is a regulation, the regulation number 1169, voted in 2011, that mentioned that you need to specify in the list of ingredients what oil is behind the term vegetable oil and what oil is behind the term vegetable fat. Today, this labeling is not mandatory, except for oil which contain allergens, which are peanut and soybean. But by December 13th this year, so less than 1 month, you would have, and it is making compulsory, to specify the nature of oil, the oil origin in the list of ingredients. And this is changing what food industry is doing. And food industry in Europe has prepared, because if you look at the situation, and this graph is representing the new product launch in European market. And you see that in blue, we have represented the new product launch which have oil description. The other color, it's the product launch without any oil description. And you see that the trend clearly since early 2012, it's to launch product with the description. And there is a quick ramp up of situation because before 2012, only 2% of the food product in terms of annual growth rate were mentioning the oil inside, and now you see that major part of a new product launch with a ramp up a growth rate of around 14%. So around today, 80% of a new product in the market today mention the oil which is inside. And in such a case, you have two options. The first option is you maintain the palm oil inside your product, but you switch towards sustainable palm oil, and you use the logo RSPO to mention that you are using sustainable palm, and the consumer will be aware that the palm is still inside, but it's a sustainable palm. This is some food companies who are using this. And you see, we have represented here the growth rate in terms of new product launch containing sustainable palm in Europe since 2008. And we see a quick ramp up of 100%. And you see that we put the half year for this year. And it seems that the trend will be still an increasing new product in the market containing sustainable palm inside. And we can say, because all this is from our analysis that we did last year, that more than 60% of sustainable palm is consumed today in food, and mainly by international branded companies who have anticipated this regulation and that they already reformulate using sustainable palm. And you have, on the opposite, other companies who decide to eliminate, to suspend the use of palm oil and to put a logo, no oil, palm, or out of oil palm on their packaging. And they are using such a logo as a sort of label. And if you look at this notion of palm-free, we have represented here the launch of new product containing the palm-free label. And you see that there is a huge growth rate also, quite similar to the last one. But you need to take another vision of this launch of product, and you need to consider that only 8% of the total product containing palm today in the market are product without palm. Means 8% of no palm for 92 products containing palm launched today. So the growth rate is huge, but in fact, it's not a big impact in the palm oil market. Not yet, not today, because you see, we are rising to 300 products last year, and the trend for this year seems to be interesting because we are very close to 300. So seems that this is a fundamental trend that we can observe. And what's the motivation? The motivation, it's the motivation of nutrition. Because beside this notion of palm-free, what is put into exert is the fact that Europe today would like to reduce the saturated fat, and they put pressure on saturated fat. Denmark was the first country to put pressure with a regulation. And in 2011, they voted a fat tax, which is called a fat tax. In fact, it was a tax that was applying only on saturated fat in foodstuff. This tax collapsed 1 year after. I don't want to enter into details, but it's mainly collapsing because they don't observe any effect clearly on the consumption on saturated fat in population. So they took 1 year and no real effect. But this notion of reducing the saturated fat is clearly in mind of European government and in mind of also European food industry. And finally, if you look at those new products which are launched today in the market, which contain the claim low saturated fat, and keep in mind that this claim of low saturated fat is clearly related to no palm inside, there is a 12% annual growth rate, and the situation seems to show that the regulation on nutrition and health claim, because you can put the notion of low saturated fat on packaging, so the fact that you can put this notion of low saturated fat on packaging since 2006 clearly indicate that this is a key trend in the market to reformulate part of their product using the labeling legislation today and step out from palm usage. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Turan. Your next panelist is Dr. Surina Ismail, who is currently working at Emery Oleochemicals. As the Global Director for IP Management, she is mainly responsible for matters related to Emery's IP strategy and portfolio. And she's got some great news for any of you in the cosmetics industry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I prefer to stand here rather than behind the podium because it's not free for me to move. I would like to thank the RSPO for inviting me to give this talk, and I think it's about time that the oleochemical part of the supply chain be represented. And to that sense, I think the first thing that we'll do is talk about the contents. I think it's important to also put where Emery is in this whole supply chain, then to look at the players, and then finally to look at the current state of play, and then finally looking at the market push and pull. So, at a glance, we are an oleochemical player, which we produce chemicals for different business platforms like, agrochemicals, biolubricants, ecopolyol, polymer additives, as well as home personal care. So, what I'm trying to say is that you can find all sorts of oleochemical products in all these ingredients that you find in everyday lives. We have been in the business for oleochemical for more than 100 years, and this is actually going further downstream. Let's look at the supply chain. Who are the players? All palm-based operators who take legal ownership and physically receive RSPO, CSPO, and CSPKO. And you want to claim this in a marketplace, then you'll have that trademark. I think this is a really important part to distinguish, because if you do want to use that trademark, it has to be a physical transition. So I'm trying to make that distinction against certificates. Now, in terms of the players, there are three major players that I've identified in the supply chain. The first operator, which is the palm oil mills and the refineries. The mid operator, which are the ingredient manufacturers. These are the oleochemicals and the derivatives. And of course, the last operator, which is the end product manufacturers. I think I want to make this distinction also clear so that you will see that there are different roles being played by all the different players in each of the supply chain. In looking at the first operator, we call them the upstream. Of course, you just have the CSPO, the CSPKO. These are the RSPO certified oil. And then you have the non-certified oil, which is still quite a majority of the producers. And of course, you have other fats and oil. And primarily, they use the supply chain models that have been mentioned, which is the identity preserved, the segregation, which is SG, mass balance, MB, as well as the certificates, which is the book and claims. In looking at the mid operator, which is basically the oleochemical players, we are the ingredient manufacturers. Now, I am a chemist by training, so I like this flow charts. It's full of chemicals and breakdowns of all the chemicals. And you can see, just from palm oil fat, just at the very beginning, palm oil, palm kernel oil, you first have just two breakdowns. Okay, you have splitting and methanolysis, and then it goes down further, and it goes down further. It is a very complicated process. I would love to sit down here because, my background is also in academia. I used to talk about organic chemistry, and this would be something that I would enjoy discussing with you guys. But I think a lot of you would just fall off the, fall off the seat. So just to show you the complexity of the oleochemical process, because it involves different kinds of carbon chains. Now, what are carbon chains? Oleochemicals or palm oil and palm kernel oil are made of many, many different carbon chains. And some of the production, some of the products that you want, you have different carbon chains. Now you have to separate these carbon chains. You have, for example, you might want to have, okay, I'm going on, C16 or C14 or C12 or C12, C14, or you want a C8 or well, carbon chain I'm talking about. Okay, you can see that I'm getting on my podium here. The point is, it is a very complex process. There are a lot of reactions going on and different tanks in different pipelines. So just going from oleobasics to the oleoderivatives is already complex. Now let's look at the next one, the last operator, which is our end product manufacturers. This is where it comes to our everyday lives. You find it in cosmetics. You find it in toys and sporting goods. You find it in insulations. You find it in rubber boots, interior parts, tires. You'll be surprised where oleochemical goes. So the point that I'm trying to say is that the presence of oleochemicals and its derivatives in our day-to-day products are, so to say, quite insidious, okay? Not to make it creepy, but, I'm trying to say that it is in your lives. So it's very difficult to try and separate them, okay? All right, so let's look at the current state of supply chain certification story from the oleochemical perspective again. This is the RSPO derivative commitment snapshot. This you can find in our RSPO website. And this is a 2011-2012 communication that I took from, not up to date. You can probably go and get a more updated one. And you can see that there's a lot of companies committing to using RSPO. So you have, for example, those below 10,000 tons, you have Lion Corporation, okay, United Biscuits, all those companies, and then you have more than 10,000 tons, you have Cow and Johnson & Johnson, and of course, you also have Unilever after 2015, and then you have, those that are not disclosed. So all this information is there for all to see. The main reason I'm saying is that it's coming to be 2015, and we hope we will have that market pool to make sure that, physical transition of sustainable palm oil is being taken up. Right. Now, on the part of the providers, who are the providers? Okay, you also have, of course, Emery over there, we are in Asia and in Europe. Other companies like Oleon in Europe, and you have EcoGreen in Asia. You also have Lion, you have IOI, New Britain Palm Oil. So you have a whole bunch of companies already also committing to providing these products. And, on the left side, of course, on my left side, is the mass balance, and on the right side are both mass balance and segregated. So you can see that these are the providers that are available. Let's see whether we can marry them. Okay, before we go there, let me talk a little bit about the complexity of the supply chain. So you can see there's the plantations. I think that this presentation has been shown before, but I just want to show how complex it can become. You have plantations, you have smallholders going to multiple mills, going towards various transportation, either by rail, ship, trucks, and then it goes to multiple refiners and blenders, then it goes through another transportation, then it goes to multiple ingredient manufacturers, bearing in mind the carbon chains, okay? So if you go from the refiners to the ingredient manufacturers, bearing in mind that, one ingredient manufacturer wants a C16 product, okay? C16 fatty acid, C16 fatty alcohol, C16 ethoxylates. Okay, these are all the chemical ingredients that comes out from the plantation or from oils and fats. So all this goes through, and before it goes to the product manufacturers and finally to retailers and finally to, us, the consumer. It's a very, very complex chain with many links with potential of mixing. Multi-layered process, because each level that you go to a company that produces just ethoxylates. What kind of ethoxylates? And then you go to another company that produces amines. What kind of amines? Then you go to another that produces just fatty alcohols. What kind of fatty alcohols? You know, this is the complexity that the whole market, the oleochemical and derivatives are facing. So it's not as simple as just going from palm olein to palm stearin. Even that has its level of complexity. Furthermore, going further down, you know, you're talking about 1,000. I think the products of palm base, I think in our previous speakers yesterday or the day before that they talked about. So you can see how complex this whole series is. Despite that, I think we are trying to meet the requirements of the market. Just to give you an example, a formulated shampoo. This is something that most of us use. These are some of the formulation. Very simple, basic. There's, of course, a lot more in it. If you ever look at the back of a shampoo, you will see many, many lovely chemical names. A lot of them non-pronounceable, but interesting nonetheless. So these are some of the basics that is in there. And you can see that it requires multiple ingredients because these are very difficult reactions to proceed. You have to put a lot of investment to get the factories to produce all these chemicals. And these multiple ingredients are required to produce just a shampoo. Let's look, you know, I mean, you look at cosmetics, you look at our moisturizers, lipsticks. Look at your detergents, also the same thing. A lot of multiple oleochemical derivatives are present, okay? So this is just one example. So how do we do this? How do we overcome this by making sure that we do have a sustainable product? Along the line, everybody has to bear the cost. It's not about premium on one end and you know, it's about cost sharing everywhere down the chain. So what is Emery's RSPO approach? We are quite fortunate. We have an integrated RSPO certified derivative supply chain solution provider. We are fortunate that we have Sime Darby quite close to us. And if you know, Sime Darby, I think at least in Malaysia, is fully 100% certified. Okay. Now, our company is quite close to the Sime Darby plantation. So we can actually pipe all this oil to the milling, to the carry island, to the crushing plant, the crushing plant that is certified, going to about 10 kilometers to a company called Jamalina, which is also part of Sime Darby, to refine and then finally go to Emery and then produce some of the products for the client's sustainable products. So we are ready for mass balance right now. The full SG, we are ready by Q1 of 2015. But we need market pull. Why? Because, let me give you an example. Again, I'm going back to my chemistry. I'm sorry about that. If I were to buy 1 ton of palm kernel oil, which contains carbon chains from C8, C10, C12, C14, some C16, some C18. Look, okay, very little. The point is, if my customer just wants C16, what am I going to do with the rest of the carbon chain? Okay? What am I going to do in trying to make sure that I don't bear all the costs? So if you buy 1 ton of certified SG and you only use a portion of it, you know, about 30%, 35, 40%, what am I going to do with the 60%? If there is no market uptake to take the C14 or C12, then, you know, I have to bear a lot of the costs. So this is where we will need to have more market participation. In other words, my further downstream. You know, it has to be not just, as the speaker earlier said, it should not be just the cart. And it should not be half a horse either, because then, you know, it's not going to go anywhere. Everybody must participate. So if there is availability, the excuse of not not getting to it, it's not going to work anymore. So essentially, I'm saying that you know, we need market uptake. We need that pull from that market, and we need to understand that it's not just one part of the supply chain that needs to bear the cost. Every single one needs to bear the cost because it is complicated. You know, if you want to have segregated, we have to keep aside the pipeline. We have to keep aside the tank. We have to keep aside the reactors. We have to make sure that even our labeling, even our packing, our transportation, our logistics, all this must be separated. And it's not an easy thing to do. Okay. Okay? So, points of consideration. IPSGMB. You know, IPSGMB via SCCS ensures that we have that physical sustainable source. It is traceable. Traceable to a sustainable source. People are always talking about traceability, but the point that needs to be considered here, traceable to what? So when you start talking about traceable without adding sustainable, then you're actually diverting the attention from sustainable to traceable. Because you can be traceable, yeah. Traceable to a non-certified source. Is that what RSPO is about now? I'm trying to figure out this because we have worked so hard to set up the sustainable source. And now another layer comes in, let's go for traceability. But if you do this, you are traceable. Okay? The complexity and demands of the supply chain should not be underestimated. We should also be aware that if there is no CSPKO I think is available, but CSPKO is an issue. There's a lot of, you know, they say CSPK is available. Now, CSPK is Certified Sustainable Palm Kernel. No oil yet. You have to go to the crushing plant to get the kernel oil. And that is also a bottleneck. So that unavailability is a problem. So the poor commitment from the upstream now to producing this pushes us, the meat operators, from being able to take it. So now the prospect for use by the market, how do we do this? We need our NGOs to fight for us and said, okay, now that we have put everything in place, let's go on. Then you have the governments. They maybe can impose a tariff for non-certified oil. You know, that's something that should be considered. And then finally, the level of awareness of RSPO and CSPO. This is not there. I was in India. I talked about it, and everybody was, I can see the glazed look in their eyes, because they don't know what RSPO is. They don't know what CSPO, let alone CSPKO in oleochemicals. Now, book and claims is a certificate. Yes, there's no traceability because there's no real physical transition here. Okay, maybe traceability can be played for the book and claims. I don't know. It is a way forward in the sense that if you are not able to have sustainability, maybe this could be a first step forward, baby steps. But ultimately, our aim should be that sustainable oil. Role of the ingredient manufacturers. The oleochemical derivatives itself must, you know, the availability of the derivatives is important in order for you guys downstream to be able to get it. As part of the supply chain, we, the oleochemical manufacturers, too need to be a little bit more aware. And I know that there are some awareness, but there's still a lot of non-awareness of how to go about to get sustainable. Readiness of the oleochemical players is also very important. You have to make sure that you are supply chain certified. There's no buts, ifs of anything else. So finally, to get to the point here, to get to that sustainable palm-based product, there are several factors here. You have to make sure the availability of the oil to begin with. The participation along the supply chain must be there. The push effect, the environmental factor, the social factors, the NGOs, the government also have a role in making sure that there is awareness for the consumers. Because ultimately, I'm sorry to say, it's the consumers who's going to pay. You know, we want to live, because we want to live in a sustainable planet. We have to pay for it, okay? So, but even if we pay for it, just bear in mind, our children and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren will have a place to live, okay? So that's part of the process. So you have costs, benefits, and sustainable palm-based products. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ismail. Next up, your next panelist is Tracy Gazibara, who has served as Vice President of Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the past 6 years. And she joined the zoo's sustainable palm oil team nearly 5 years ago and has traveled to Indonesia and Malaysia a few times to research the palm oil crisis.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I wanted to talk to you today about what zoos and aquariums in the U.S. are doing to help push the market for CSPO. But I wanted to give you a little bit of history about Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and what we've been working on. In 2008, we began researching the challenges of palm oil production. In 2010, we took our first trip to Indonesia and Malaysia to learn more about the palm oil industry. And we visited lots of people, organizations, plantations, certified, non-certified, and there was one common question that we got a lot from plantations. So in case you're wondering, I'm going to hopefully answer it for you. We always were asked, why do zoos care about palm oil production, or the RSPO? Well, zoos are conservation organizations, and we care about animals, we care about the orangutan, we care about the health of our planet as a whole, so we care about sustainable production. So that's why we got involved in sustainable palm oil. We joined the RSPO in late 2010, early 2011, and we were the first zoo to do that because we saw that the RSPO was working towards sustainable palm oil. Since then, we've been advocating since 2011 and even earlier than that to try to push sustainable palm oil. We have over 215 accredited zoos. And we wanted to try to align all those zoos and aquariums so that we could speak with one voice and give one message about sustainable palm oil. When there's more than one message, then it can be very confusing for consumers as well as our peers and other institutions. So the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, member institutions total over 180 million guests a year. That's a lot of consumers. And we're hoping that we can make a difference with those 180 million consumers. So how are we going to go about unified messaging, or what have we been doing to try to get there? The Association of Zoos and Aquariums, AZA, created a palm oil task force in January of 2014. The Cheyenne Mountain Zoo co-hosted an event in April to try to lay the groundwork for what that position statement would be. Then in July of 2014, the AZA Board of Directors passed a position statement. I don't have time to read it all, but I do want to highlight some of the position statement. The AZA recognizes that unsustainable palm oil production results in massive deforestation, which we've all been talking about today. By facilitating change through audience and stakeholder engagement, AZA-accredited zoos and aquariums are well positioned to help break that link between palm oil production and deforestation. So that's one of our major goals. The AZA understands that the RSPO is a critical part of the solution to the palm oil conservation crisis, therefore supports the RSPO. The AZ also recognizes that the production and uptake of existing CSPO is a key to the first step of stemming the tide of tropical deforestation. And an even more important statement, or part of that statement, is that the AZA does not support a boycott. So basically what we're hoping with the alignment of the AZA position statement is that all institutions take on this position statement and move forward promoting sustainable palm oil. So some more good news. The Cheyenne Mountain Zoo has been facilitating a survey for the last 4 years, kind of getting a feel where zoos and aquariums are today on their messaging about palm oil, amongst other things. There's about 30 questions, but I only have time for 2 that I wanted you to see. So it shows from 2011 to 2014 that more zoos and aquariums are giving messages about sustainable palm oil, which is really great news. And they're also getting more guidance for management. So it's coming from the top down, not necessarily the down up, which was in the past. Also, really great news is that the messaging from zoos and aquariums are consumers should buy products from RSP members. So hopefully, again, that's going to push companies to use sustainable palm oil. And overall, generally, palm oil messaging in zoos has gone up about 30% since 2011. So what is Cheyenne Mountain Zoo doing specifically? I want to say that there's a lot of U.S. zoos doing great work, and there's also zoos in other countries doing great work. But I thought I'd share a little bit with you about what we're doing. We had the Palm Oil Symposium in 2014 in April. We had 30 representatives from about that many zoos. And we talked about how we're going to facilitate unified messaging. We wanted to talk about how to engage companies, and also how are we going to get our guests, the consumers, involved in sustainable palm oil. So during that symposium, again, we talked about no boycotting. We want to increase the uptake of CSPO and advocate for 100% CSPO that's deforestation free, one of ultimately our main goals. So one thing that we heard out of the symposium from some of our guest speakers and from other organizations is that letter writing really does help, that companies listen to consumers when they're sending off their thoughts. And so we talked about how can we make a difference with over 180 million guests coming to our zoos. At Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, we have 650,000. Again, if only a small percentage of those contacted companies saying and demanding sustainable palm oil, hopefully we would move that way. And companies will begin to see the trend coming from AZA-accredited zoos and institutions. Our letters that we write for companies are really tailored towards the journey. We recognize that not every RSPO member is in the same spot. Some are just joining, some have been with us for a really long time. So we tailor that letter to ask for different steps depending on where they are. We also want to thank companies for doing the work that they're doing and trying to be the best at what they're doing. Again, our end goal is ultimately 100% physical CSPO, that is deforestation free, increasing the CSPO available, and also move past green palm. So Cheyenne Mountain Zoo also created a toolkit. The toolkit includes all different sample letters for companies, graphics that different institutions can use in their primate world buildings, kids activities. We have a huge photo library and videos from our different visits here. Unfortunately, a lot of zoos and institutions don't get to see what's on the ground, so we've been able to share that with them. And we hope that other institutions will use this information as well. One of the most recent tools that we've added to our toolkit is a shopping app. And our guests really want to help and make a difference. They ask us, what can we do? What can we do to help save orangutans? What can we do to help save the forest? So we've given them a letter writing tool. We've told them different things that they can do, but one thing that they can definitely do is use their shopping, their pocketbook basically, and only shop for RSPO member companies that are doing a really great job. So we launched our phone app in 2013, and basically it includes all US companies that are members of the RSPO. And during our symposium in April, we had a little bit of feedback from other institutions, and they said, well, not all RSPO companies are created equally, which again, we've talked about. And so they wanted to have a rating system to really encourage those that aren't doing as well to do better, and then also thank the ones that are and make sure our consumers can buy products from those companies. So just as a little example of a new launched upgraded app that we did in September of this year, you can see that it's green, yellow, and orange, so excellent, good, and needs improvement. And a consumer can search the app, and then they're going to get a message, and they can see either green, yellow, or orange. And if the product they want, there's a color of all, of course, we're going to recommend green products because those are the companies that are making the most progress. Again, we wanted to recognize companies for the work they're doing and encourage those that need improvement. But mostly, we want to assist consumers in making choices to help push the market towards 100% sustainable palm oil. So the new rating system has 5 different categories. Again, I don't have time to go over each and every one of them, but I'll just hit the highlights. Of course, you have to be a member of the RSPO to be even rated. It's a lot about submitting ACOPs. We don't know what you're doing unless you submit an ACOP. So if you submitted an ACOP, then you scored quite highly, depending on what was in it. And also the use of certified sustainable palm oil, depending on how much CSPO you're using compared to how much overall palm oil you're using. It also depending on if you're using the RSPO logo, and whether or not your company has a formal commitment to use 100% deforestation-free palm oil. So those were the different categories that we rated when doing our new phone app. During that time, we sent, right before we launched, may be actually at the same time, but we sent letters to every company in the app explaining the rating system and where they were on the, in the app. And we were really excited to receive a lot of feedback from those companies, mostly positive. And we had people thanking us, and if they were an orange company, they're asking us what they can do to move up that spectrum. So, in closing, with the AZA's new position statement, with more and more AZ-accredited zoos moving forward, starting their own programs of awareness, getting consumers to understand what they can do to make a difference for orangutans and other wildlife in our environment in general, we hope that we can align together to continue to push the market to 100% certified sustainable palm oil that's deforestation-free. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Your last panelist for the day is Daniel May, who is the Secretary General of the German Forum on Sustainable Palm Oil, which supports the goal of a 100% segregated CSPO and CSPKO in Germany.
Thank you very much. Before I start my presentation, I would like to know, I just calculated, we have 12 PowerPoint presentations today. Are you interested in one more? I hear some grumble saying no. Okay, then I quit my PowerPoint presentation, but would need 2 volunteers from the audience coming up to me. I won't do any harm to you. It will take 2 minutes, and it just explains very briefly what we are doing. 2 volunteers, otherwise you get the presentation. Come on, 2 volunteers. It's a bad luck for those sitting in the first row all the time, but Michelle and Adam, thank you. So I tried to prepare a chain for you because it's like to have the discussion about the supply chain. So I would like to ask you, both of you, take your hand there, but maybe a bit here because it might break a little bit. I'm not that sure how solid this is. So I would like to ask you now, if you would like to move the market and really try to pull her, and you please stay there. Yeah. So you see, how? Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks. How is that like?
I need a bit more help.
Okay. And how does that feel for you?
Yeah, embarrassing.
Yeah, embarrassing. So that we can see, obviously, it doesn't really properly work. Now we do it the other way around. Come back to the middle. Now you're going to push him now, because he tried to pull you, and now you try to push him. Any movements? No. So now I would like to try you to push and pull, tighten the rope a bit. Yeah. You push and pull at the same time. Push and pull at the same time. You pull and you push at the same time. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done now. Thank you very much, because we can see. Like, we can see, for me, it's not a question like of the session, what we have today, push or pull. It's push and pull, and this at the same time. And I think this is what we have seen here on the podium already, and this on the panel already, and this is what we are doing in Germany as well. Like we have founded a group of, or we have founded the Forum on Sustainable Palm Oil, which is a group of now 37 committed members. All of them have committed towards the use of 100% certified palm oil until the end of the year. We are quite optimistic that all of those guys are achieving it. And we will, in the end, we want to try to create champions that we distinct between sustainable palm oil and non-sustainable palm oil. We want to build a critical mass, especially among the industry partners, to show the market that there is demand, and also to show to the other companies which are not yet doing enough, let's say like this, that it's feasible to do so. And looking like at those commitments our members signed, it's 100% CSPO. Right now it contains all supply chain options, so it still involves green palm. And this is what I try to communicate all the time to the German market and to the German members. For me, there is no reason why a consumer goods manufacturer or retailer can't be certified 100%. Go out to talk to Bob Norman, and you will be certified within 2 hours. You would be 100% certified within 2 hours. And this is what I try to communicate to our companies, even though we will shift, or just in the last week, the members agreed towards the new commitments. Those commitments are still 100% certified palm oil. However, we are sorting out some of the supply chain options. So there's a clear commitment of those companies to say, for instance, that they want to source 100% segregated palm oil start or latest by the 1st of January 2016. To clearly show to the market there is demand, and this is what we are trying to do. We build up this group, or this critical mass of companies. They work together, they cooperate together, they help each other whenever there are questions when it's coming to supply chain certification, whenever it's questions of joint communication, whenever it's questions of how should I address journalist questions? How should I communicate to media? How should I communicate to stakeholders? So this is a very, very active group helping each other to make a way forward. There's mutual learning and mutual recognition of what the others are doing. We communicate about this, but we also need, and this is something what I think I clearly need to say, sometimes defend ourselves, because we still receive criticism that we are not doing enough, which is a challenge. We need to be challenged, but our members are also challenging their supply chain partners. I'll leave it for the time being to start with the discussion, but thank you very much for not having the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, we're going to open this session up for questions. If anybody has questions on the floor for any of the panelists.
Hi, it's Andy Green from BM Trada. Daniel, I don't want to take issue with somebody who's just saved me from a PowerPoint presentation, and I do thank you for that. But two of your fellow panelists have talked about CSPO plus or deforestation-free palm oil, yet you're talking about green palm being acceptable as proof of certified sustainable palm oil. One thing that green palm isn't is certified sustainable palm oil. So when do you actually envisage moving your commitments in Germany to actually physical sustainable palm oil and supporting the uptake of the supply chain?
As I mentioned, there are various steps involved. For the very beginning, we took the bar quite low, saying only 100% certified. We will have several steps going towards segregation, going towards developing timelines with regard to traceability, with regard to additional criteria which are not yet included in the RSPO. And I think there's no surprise when I'm saying, oh, this is related to greenhouse gases, to no new development on peats, phasing out dangerous pesticides, and this legality issue around the FFBs. This is something what we will be, or what in the end the members we are having are requesting from their suppliers, but within certain time-bound plans. We have the challenge. We have like companies like Unilever, which are well ahead of other members we are having. We have a lot of members where most of you, or where certainly all of you, never heard of. They're consuming 50 tons or 100 tons of palm or palm-related products per year, and in the end, they need a lot of support from us to achieving their supply chain certification, getting into those discussions about traceability, getting into those discussions on additional criteria. Because, for instance, just last week we received the question, why do we need those add-on criteria or RSPO plus? I already do RSPO and I'm segregated. Isn't that enough? And this is a question we are receiving from many, and so I believe it still takes time to take those steps to support them. And there are certainly companies which are much quicker, and there are companies which are a bit slower, but even still running ahead. Many others we still have in Germany, because there are still a huge number of companies out there which don't have the 100%, which are not sourcing even mass balance. And this is what we try to do.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Any other questions?
Yes. Hello, my name is Cécile Schneider from Conservation International, and I have a question directed to Mr. Turon. It's regarding the European market. My question is, so we know that the supply chain is very complex in the case of palm oil, more complex than for many other commodities, and this is why there's a problem with, that's one of the challenges for the consumer's uptake of sustainable palm oil. So of course, one of the things we have to do is communicate better about sustainable certified palm oil and how this is a way of actually making sure that we don't consume deforestation, let's say. But then, for me, policy has also a very important role in guiding the consumers and sending out the right signal. And so I know that in the European Union, for example, there's different policies being discussed currently, one of them being the European Action Plan on Deforestation and Forest Degradation, which would include an explicit encouragement for deforestation-free commodities. So if you could just comment on what do you think about the role of the policy for consumers?
Thanks for the question. I don't know exactly what you want as a comment. What I can say is that Europe today has focus on nutrition and health, like other countries in the world. If you look at what is happening in USA today is focusing on trans fat. So Europe has also focused on trans fat. We are expecting a result of a survey for the right level of trans fat consumption by country in Europe. But trans fat, I don't think it's a key issue in Europe since a lot of time. And today, the notion of saturated fat is something which is increasing. In the past, it was northern countries in Europe who first started to fight trans, and then it expanded in all Europe in terms of limiting, limiting for nutritional recommendation. But today, I don't think there is a commitment in Europe about deforestation in Malaysia or Indonesia in relation with palm. It's different way of thinking the topic. It's relation of nutrition and health, incidence of, let's say, potential incidence of palm health on consumer, because I don't know really if the major part of saturated fat is coming from palm, and I'm not sure that the major part of saturated fat is coming from palm. You know that European citizens are eating a lot of meat, a lot of cheese, a lot of milk, and all these fat contain a lot of saturate. So hopefully there is no lobbying from milk in the room, otherwise they would kill me. But I don't think that today the situation of saturated is related to palm. But palm is in focus. So once again, I think the communication to citizens, to consumers is very important. And you will need to communicate about the right level today of saturated fat coming from palm, for example. It would be a very good communication, because otherwise, in consumer mind, they could associate palm to saturated, and the food company need to follow this way of thinking. They could also make education, of course, but if they don't make education of the consumer, they only cut the saturated in their product just to capture the claim of low saturated fat, and it's a marketing advantage at the end of the day. So I don't really answer to your question, but it's my view.
All right.
Thank you. Teo Cheng Hai from IFC. I'd like to address Eddie's, I think, concluding recommendations, whereby you're suggesting there should be market differentiation for different grades of CSPO, platinum and so on. And yet, we've heard in several RTs that the buyers and the manufacturers are not willing to have a 2 or 3 tier market. So is your recommendation optimistic, or more importantly, I'd like to direct that to the MNCs, the buyers present in this room? Are they willing to take up your recommendation? Thank you.
Well, in my opinion, I think that's the fact of life, because the market also demand for different stratification of the products, and I think some market demand for to go beyond CSPO, but in some I actually feel being segregated RSPO certified is adequate. So, but I think I would like also to highlight that this is the result of what's called imbalance pressure or imbalance situation that we are facing right now. So part of the producer, all the stakeholders always use hard approach, push, push, push and pressurize. Whereas to the market, there is no hard pressures. We only heard about the soft approach. We just lobbying and trying to, what's called, raise awareness. So in the end, I think if we can use the hard approach, I believe that there is no what's called, no more categorization or no more stratification required, only RSPO or non-RSPO. But now, because I think we are also scared to push the market, inevitably we have to realize that the market is evolved by itself. So I believe that there will be more stratification in the market. In the, so as a response, the production, the producing companies only respond to what the demand coming from the market. Thank you.
Okay, we had one other question back there.
Yeah, my name is Denis Reiskart from Paneco, but also research at university. My question is that one of the main critiques about uptake is the fact that there is no real segregation, and the issue of like green palm and tends to mixed, and therefore there's competitive initiative like the Palm On Initiative group. And therefore my main question is that do you think there will be a full segregation? And then when? Could you, everybody, give me a time when you think it will be a clear segregation? Because then you will have a real market uptake also, because you can show to the consumer that you have something. Otherwise, it may be perceived as a greenwashing exercise for some different actors, and therefore be attacked quite easily.
Okay, I think Dr. Ismail can take that on.
Okay, I can relate to what you're saying, because right now there are a lot of so-called greenwashing going on. You know, some saying let's do traceability, some saying let's do palm oil initiatives. There's no clear communication being given, and that is always an issue. It's always about communication. If we are clear in our communication that mass balance is available, physical transition is available, then the uptake should be there. But unfortunately, we are also, in the corporation, we are industries. Bottom line is still an important factor. So there's always that gray area to see where we can sort of not have to put our commitment without being sure, because it's all about risk. So I think the point being is right now, it's also our responsibility to be clear in our message, not be wishy-washy, not say that, okay, books and claims or certificates is the way to go. Maybe as a first step, yes, but maybe we should have a timeline. So if you do this sort of things, then markets are a lot more sure, maybe there will be more uptake. But again, as demonstrated by my colleague just now on the push-pull, you can push all you like. If there's no pull, it's not going to go anywhere. So right now, the point is that if you have certificates and you don't have physical transition, of course, physical certificates is going to be the one that's going to be taken up. I hope I've answered your question. No? Okay, I guess I misunderstand your question. I'm sorry.
It's very nice, but for me it was more for every panel member, what's their idea of when do you think a time-bound plan, or the idea where the segregation will be done but just a natural way, because of course green power can be considered like a transition period. Then when do we arrive to something where there is no green power, basically?
No, all RSPO member has that annual combination of progress, and we have that commitment. So we are supposed to meet with that commitment. If the commitment says that you're supposed to use segregated, then they're supposed to do it. And maybe the point here is that for us to be a little bit more clear about our commitment. I don't know, maybe ask the rest of the panel.
Yeah, I would like to add on this, to be more clear both on the commitment and as well as was already was achieved. Like in last year's RT, many of you remember this, we had those open space sessions. And one of those open space sessions, myself and one or two more colleagues, we committed ourselves to build up a transparency platform on derivative and fractions already being available in mass balance and segregated at the European market. This is what we committed. And then we started working on this, and then we found out it's obviously extremely difficult to get out information of all those mainly processors and traders, that they are more transparently are communicating what kind of products they already have available. We received quite a number of either no response or a number of responses. Well, we are talking this directly with our customers, we already have. And then other customers finally are somehow out. I receive a number of questions of the companies we are working with. Where can I buy a specific derivative or a specific fraction in segregated or in mass balance? Like my current supplier is not offering it to me, and then they ask a second supplier and they are also not offering it, and then they give up. And this is something, finally where I urge in the end everyone being here and everyone producing those kind of products, provide those information transparently, both on your webpage, in press releases, give those information, whatever, to secretariats like us, also in the Netherlands, in the UK, and all this. They have similar organizations like us, and this would be very, very helpful for us, because I receive many of those questions, and as more consumer goods manufacturers and retailers know where they can buy such products, as better and more helpful it is.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to the volume that I was talking about, and I think to answer that gentleman's question, there is no definite answer. Everybody's got different timelines. But if I could just ask you, Dr. Ismail, a quick question. What was the reason behind your company's decision to get into segregated product at this time?
Well, we do have that commitment to sustainability. Our vision is to be a natural product producer. And the point is, we have the opportunity because Sime Darby, which is very close to our manufacturing site, is right next door. So the opportunity is for us to actually work with Sime Darby to make sure that, whatever palm kernel oil that they have can be just pipelined through, because then you're not only talking about segregation, you're talking about greenhouse gas. I mean, you're talking about the fact that you won't spend the money on logistics, shipping it all over to the other side of the world when we are right there. So it's all about the companies, our SIMDABI and us, sitting down and discussing the great golden opportunity for us to make sure that we will meet the requirements of sustainability. That's basically.
Is there any actual demand for it right now? Any contract signed, supply deals? Or you just did it because you felt like being a good corporate citizen?
This is a business decision. I'm looking at it on a sustainability side, and I'm saying to the market, it's there. It's up to the market now to take it up. So the insistence that it's not available doesn't wash anymore. But bear in mind that I can't, our company, our manufacturing can't take 70 kilograms. Our reactor is, at least 1,000 tons. So you can't take that small amount. So we have to get that volume. And this is where we will now need the markets to come in. So again, when the market comes in, then the cost of having all this done can all be shared equally. And in the end, everybody profits. That's it.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I just comment the question? Look at I don't know if you are a chemist. In chemistry, there is a reaction which is oxidation. You are a chemist, you know oxidation. Oxidation is an oxidation which is auto-running. I mean, when it starts, it's continuous and it increases in rate. And usually, the curve is like this. So, look at the action of some leaders like you who decide today to move towards segregation. It's like the phenomenon of oxidation. Means we need starter, we need fuel, and after that, you will see a ramp up. Because they are starting the initiation, then there is propagation, and because others will follow, they need to be in the course, they can't be outside. Because at the end of the day, it's business, it's marketing, and you need to follow the trend, you need to follow the bus, you need to enter in the bus when it is running, and if you are out, you are out. So, these events are important, and just to answer to a question, the notion is not time, because it's very easy to say a time, let's say 10 years, 3 months, 5 days and 5 hours, but it's not a notion of time, it's a notion of how and why, and how initiators are starting, means others will follow.
All right, we'll have time for one last question.
Thank you. My name is Yotsawin. I'm a smallholder farming expert. Since 2006 or 7, we certified the first ISPO, and now I heard that there is 11 million tons of CSPO available in the market. But out of this, I wonder how many million tons is out of smallholders. I heard the numbers of 145,000 smallholders are certified. But out of this, when I calculate the independent smallholders which are certified, I guess it's less than 1,000. So my question back to the panel is that the complication, like Dr. from Emory mentioned, volume. You need volume to respond to this pull and push. So my question is, this complication, how can our farmers who are working outside of this room daily can go along with this plan, traceability especially, smallholders who has 2 or 3 hectares and they are independent. How could this player join the game and be part of RSPO? This probably I would like to ask also at EU, do you aware of these complications, and how would the people in local, in producer level react to this or respond to this? Because you also, one speaker mentioned also saying that everyone have to bear the cost. Of course, everyone bear the cost, but how should the people in the ground respond to this? Because at the moment, only RSPO itself, no plus, no other additional requirements, still lacking and still far to compare with other good plantations to come into certification. Thank you.
Any of you want to try that on, or should I take it on?
Just would like to briefly address that question. In my opinion, I think the smallholders need to work closely with the certified mills and create a group which will economically viable to sell the CSPO as segregated. So this is the challenge for the smallholders basically, because it cannot run independently. It has to deal or depend on the mill, the certified mill. And I believe that even though segregated is the paper what's it called, scheme, however, we also cannot ignore the fact that the mass balance and book and claim are also available. And then this scheme is actually applicable for nascent market, for the new developing market. And then segregation is likely suitable for much developed and mature market for the CSPO. So I believe that these three schemes are also an option for the smallholders to actually to take benefit of.
Look for a certified mill. That's the answer. All right, I think we're out of time. I'd like to thank you all for coming. And I hope you all picked up something from this particular session. Special thank you to all the panelists here today.
Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Robert and our lovely panelists for the enlightening discussion. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end for today's program. And just a gentle reminder, please be here tomorrow. That's right, we are waiting for your presence from 9 a.m. onwards for the plenary on traceability, followed by another high-level panel discussion. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for your time and your presence here today. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to remind you on the GA11 registration tomorrow, 20th of November, it will be available from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m.